let's see here. Hello everybody, I don't know if this is working. I changed the parameters. It says that I'm not getting, it's not, oh, okay. It says poor quality. So now it says that the stream is healthy. But that's not what it looks like. Anyway, if you guys want to chime in and tell me how bad it is, tell me how bad it is, and I'll do this again and make it better. I'm still figuring out the software, and I apologize if this is a problem. And I'm concerned about starting answering questions just yet. Okay, so let me read this stuff. Javier says hello. Nice to see you too. Mary says it's freezing a lot. And yes, that is on my end. So is that better? Let me see over here. It looks like it might be better. Okay. So I hope everyone's doing good. Yeah, I would like for this software to work because I like to share screen and stuff like that, and I can't do that with if it's the webcam. So it looks like it's not as choppy now. I think if I look at what's scrolling on the web page, not scrolling, you know, I think if I look at that, then yes, it's halting. That's the word I've been using lately. It's a little bit halting. But what I can't do is I can't switch from this software to the webcam. So, you know what I should do is I should have a stream that's private. That way nobody can see it and work these issues out before Friday comes. Oh, anyway. So, one of the things I did, and I think I mentioned it last week, is I'm posting on the website and posting the video for this 24 hours early so that I can give people a chance to ask their questions before we start. And one of my students asked, and so we'll get to his questions first. He's got 4 questions. His name's Sean. And here's the thing, before we go into that, let me tell you this. Over the years, I've tried different styles of private lessons, and a lot of stuff doesn't work. So like, for example, the old traditional academic way of teaching trumpet lessons does not work for me. this thing where you have to come every week and you do what I tell you to, and if you're not there for that time, you don't get a lesson. If you get a makeup, that's all on you. That kind of attitude. I can't do that because of the first of all because of the students I'm working with, and second of all because of my responsibilities. There's times when I have to change all that too. So there's a bunch of complicated things involved in how we decided what the lessons are going to be. So what we have right now is two styles of lesson. We have the weekly lessons, which are more like the traditional lessons, right? You pay a month in advance, and it's like a lot like what you have with the traditional stuff. But then we have this other thing that we call ad hoc lessons. Now, the ad hoc lessons are more expensive because there's more work involved. We have to set you up every time you have a lesson. Whereas the weekly students, they've got their time, and unless they have to reschedule, and we're very open to that, but unless they have to reschedule, we don't have to do much. I just show up to the lesson. So the ad hoc lessons are a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to come every week. And in fact, there's no recommendation. I have students that are taking a lesson, it seems like 4 times a year. And by the way, there was a music business book that I read years ago. In fact, I went back later and I bought a copy of it. And it's called How to Make $30,000 a year in your hometown without a record contract or something like that. And all right, everybody. Oh man, so we're back to normal. This should be great now. So all right. So say hello if we are connected, please, because I figured out what I was doing wrong. So I bumped all the numbers back again. So say hello real quick, or say okay or something, so that I know that we're back to normal. Or tell me if it is if the screen is messed up. Let me know that the screen is messed up. Are we getting anybody? Yeah. Oh. So hopefully this is gonna work. We'll see. All right. Let's see how this goes. This should be better. Okay. So this should be. Ah, this is frustrating. So let me know. Yeah, I'm still getting errors. Okay, I'm. This has got to work now. I hope we're done with that nonsense. Okay. I apologize, everybody. I got a little, I don't know, ambitious and ended up messing everything up. Let's see, is anyone even still here? Yeah, you guys are still here. Haha. Okay. So, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to spend some time between now and next week trying to figure out what it is I'm doing wrong. I would like this to be higher quality, but in the effort to make it higher quality, I messed everything up and I apologize for that. Anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. About the lessons. With the ad hoc lessons, you don't have to come at any regular. You could take one a year if you wanted to. I was telling you about that book. Hello, James. Hello, Cardo. I'll get to your question in a second, Cardo. So, what was I saying? I'm all like razzled now. I was talking about that book. So this book said that you should never be disrespectful to someone who gives you only 1 gig a year, because if you have 50 of those, that's a gig a week, right? And I thought that was a beautiful strategy. I wouldn't have never been disrespectful to anybody anyway, right? But I love that philosophy that says, um, there's nothing wrong with someone that gives you a gig a year, because if you have a bunch of those, that's a lot of gigs. And I feel the same way about the lessons. When people, there's people that take a lesson every other week, there's people that take once a month, there's people that take once every 3 months. And what I would love to have, because I can't teach weekly students, I can't teach that many of them. There's not enough time in the week. Um, and so this other way of doing it, where you're teaching just, someone will take, like I said, the one student takes about 4 lessons a year. And that's great. Actually, I have one student that takes a lesson every other year. But you see what I'm saying? It's like, why would I say anything against that? Because I think that's a great way to do it if you don't have the money for coming every week. Now, the reason I brought that up is that what I would like to see is I would like to see this Q and A become a part of those ad hoc students' lessons. So that so let's say they pay for a lesson, and then let's say 3 months pass before they have another lesson. In the meantime, they might have questions. Right? So James asks if monthly lessons are considered ad hoc. Yes, anything other than weekly. So, the reason for that is because weekly lessons don't take that extra effort. So that's why it's like that. So if you have one a month, one every other week, it's still ad hoc. And the other reason for the higher price for that also is, let's say someone wants to take every other week. Well, there is no such thing as every other week. We don't have that. We don't offer it. I've never offered it. And the reason for that is because that week that you're not here, I can't just put a weekly student in that spot. So either you're getting that time for half off, right? Or anyway, I don't. So anyway, so yes, if you're not weekly, then it's ad hoc. And what I was saying is that this Q&A really should be part of the ad hoc student's lesson. If there's something that comes up during the time between lessons and they want help with that, really this is the best way to do that. Is they should ask the question. Now, the reason why I am bringing that up now is this person who I'm about to answer his questions, Sean, he's an ad hoc student, and he used to take with me weekly years and years ago. And hello, Twin Pyramid, peace to you too. I think that's Sean, isn't it? Sean McGinney? Or am I forgetting? I can't remember now. I get all the screen names mixed up. So anyway, so this is what it is. The reason why I'm scheduling the Q&A 24 hours in advance is so that people have time to ask their questions. I know for sure, for example, that Sean is at work right now, and that's why he's put his questions in advance. So he's got 3 questions for us. Let's get started on his questions. Sean says, not sure if this is the correct terminology, but how many different styles of jazz are there? That's kind of a hard question. I think you can break it up into genres. I mean, eras. You can break it up into eras. You have the early jazz, then you have the swing jazz, and then you have bebop, and then you have big band, and then you have hard bop, and other types of post bop, and then you have fusion, or if you want to call it fusion, some people call it jazz rock. And then you have the more modern stuff like acid jazz. And then there's also this like mainstream jazz, and mainstream jazz is basically like stuff you would play in a cocktail bar. So, or at a wedding reception or something like that. A lot of people don't call that jazz, even though it's jazz tunes and you're improvising. A lot of people just don't call that jazz. Okay, and then what style of jazz does Tom Harrell play? I would say that's his second question. What style of jazz does Tom Harrell play? I would put him in the post-bop category. And post-bop is, sort of the same vein as like Wayne Shorter and Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, those guys. That's where I would put him. And for us to talk about those guys without mentioning Miles Davis, you can't forget that. So Miles Davis had that band that had basically the Kind of Blue album. Oh, there's another kind of jazz there. Cool jazz, right? And cool jazz also has another component. What do you call it? West Coast swing, I think they call it. So I know I'm jumping around here a little bit. Okay, Sean's third question is it better to buy transcriptions of music you want to play or write them out yourself? It's better to write them out yourself. I don't have a problem. Well, let's put it this way. To me, Writing a transcription and reading transcriptions are two entirely different things. You cannot get the benefit of writing out a transcription from a book. I hope that makes sense. The reason I buy transcription books, and I do believe in buying transcriptions books, I just also believe in doing transcriptions as often as you can. I'm actually transcribing a solo right now of Sunny Stitt on Tune Up. I mentioned that last week. And there's benefit in doing that yourself that you will never equal just by buying a book and reading it. We buy the books so that we can analyze what other people have played. I hope that makes sense. So those are two entirely different things. His last question is, where do you buy transcriptions? Well, first of all, I think the first thing you should do is get online and get the downloads. There's a bunch of transcription downloads that you can get for free. And just put trumpet transcription PDF, and a lot of websites come up. So there's a lot of that. And you have, also nowadays, you have YouTube videos that have the transcriptions on them. So if you're looking just to study what someone has done, I would start with the free stuff. Unless there's a very specific solo you're trying to find. And in that case, you should probably be just doing it yourself. Okay, so Cardo asks, hello, Eddie. Thanks again for the new Q and A. You're welcome. I have a question. How long does it take to fully adapt to a new mouthpiece? I would say okay, so let me think about the way I'm answering that. Fully adapt. Because you know what? I think that means different things to different people. I had a mouthpiece, this mouthpiece here. I think I showed you guys this recently. The cup is so deep, my whole pinky fingernail goes all the way in there. When I first got this mouthpiece, my endurance went so low that for about a week or two, it was like I was starting all over. It was like I was starting all over. I couldn't make it through my routine. Now, what's interesting is that my range didn't go down. It was my endurance. But the range was just as high. Okay? And it took me about a week and a half to get that endurance back. So, in that case, adapting to the mouthpiece was a matter of building the endurance so that I could play on the mouthpiece. I think what some other people call adapting to the mouthpiece is not something I actually want. So if I just buy some arbitrary mouthpiece and it's not working, that's not something that's just going to get better over time. So endurance is one thing, right? That's something that can get better. So if it's just making you tired, but if it gives you a terrible sound, yeah, I'm not going to say that that's going to take time. If your flexibility is gone, I'm not going to say that's going to, what's going to change? Does that make sense? So in that regard, I don't think you ever do have to have time. I think you should, when you find, now, do you know what? I think my attitude towards mouthpieces is a lot like my attitude towards embouchures, right? We're not looking for a gimmick embouchure. We're not looking for the embouchure that might help you get the high notes, or embouchure that will do this, this, and that. We're looking for your most natural embouchure. When you find that embouchure, it will feel as if you've played that way your whole life, because it's your embouchure. Okay? And the mouthpiece should be the same way. When you find the right mouthpiece for you, there should be no adapting. You know, this lead mouthpiece that I have now, this is the second time I bought that mouthpiece. I kind of went back in history. The first custom mouthpiece I ever bought was in 1990. I ordered it, and my ex-wife, it came in the mail while I was warming up for a concert. My ex-wife brought it to me because it was the concert was just down the street. She brought it to me. I put the mouthpiece in. I played the concert. I didn't even warm up on the mouthpiece, and it was awesome. Now, I found that mouthpiece through logic. I knew this about this mouthpiece. I knew that about that mouthpiece. I knew these different things about my needs, right? So then, and down to the measurements, by the way. I knew what the outside diameter was, the inside diameter, what the cup was, all that stuff. So when I ordered that lead mouthpiece, it was based on the numbers, theoretically at the time, based on the numbers that I had figured out, sort of experimenting with different mouthpieces. So when I got the mouthpiece, of course there was no adjustment time, because that was the right mouthpiece for me to be playing on. I hope that makes sense. So no, there should be no adjustment period except for endurance. If the mouthpiece is causing endurance issue, then yes, you want to have time to let that happen. But if you're having any problems on any mouthpiece, that means, aside from endurance, that means that mouthpiece probably is not right for you. Okay? All right, so hello, Raimo. Nice to see you. Raimo asks, does playing tuba disturb or destroy my trumpet playing? That depends on what kind of trumpet embouchure you have. If you recall, and maybe you weren't here then, a few weeks ago we talked about the difference between a inflammation-based embouchure and a muscular embouchure. If you play on an inflammation-based embouchure and you switch to tuba, back and forth, like in the same day, the tuba will cause your inflammation to go away, and you will not be able to play the trumpet for a few days after that, because building up that swelling in your lip takes a couple days at least. If you are a muscular trumpet player, then the tuba might create some differences in the way it feels. It might be a little confusing in the way it feels, but it should not stop you from playing trumpet. Now, this is also the same reason why people with inflammation-based embouchures, swelling-based embouchures, cannot do pedal tones. Or at least if they do pedal tones, let's put it this way, they don't do pedal tones as a series of exercises. They might do pedal tones to reduce the swelling just a tiny bit, but if they do like my set of pedal tones, where you're doing like, like 10 exercises. Those 10 exercises might actually cause them to not be able to play the horn because it would reduce the swelling. I hope that makes sense. Anthony asks, oh, he says, wow, number 91. Yeah, 91. We're creeping up on 100. I want to do something special for 100. Maybe we'll do a marathon, a 24-hour. I'm just kidding. I don't think I could do that. What we could do is like a double or something. We'll have a celebration when we get to 100. All right. So Anthony says he's on his break. Gabriel says, Eddie, we always say high range is familiarity. Is it the same for intervals too? Any tip to better practice intervals? Absolutely. Absolutely. The intervals, now it's a different kind of familiarity, right? But it is absolutely familiarity. What makes you good at intervals is how well you remember the precise setting for that note. We're talking about the combination of the air. We're talking about oral cavity. We're talking about how tight the lips are, how big or small the aperture is. Now, you know this, but I'm going to say this for everybody else that might be listening that doesn't know this. I don't believe we control that stuff consciously. And that's why he said, for those of you who have not heard us talk about this before, that's why he said the word familiarity. When I'm talking about familiarity, I'm talking about the subconscious mind operating the way it needs to operate without our intervention, right? So yes, hitting that note. Now, your question is, what can you do to practice the intervals? There's two things. The first one is to practice them very slowly and deliberately. But beside that, now I wouldn't do this as part of the routine. I would do this as a separate practice session. We don't want to break the flow of the routine. So do the routine. Then if you're going to do intervals as a separate practice, so let's say, for example, you're going to do right? Put in a buzzing device. I'm not warmed up. Like that, okay? I need to get some water. Wow. So yes, you can do the buzz aid stuff, and that can help. You can also, by the way, change the rhythm. Let's say you keep missing the same note. Well, there's this thing that I've been doing with my students where you just put a fermata on that one note. It's marvelous the way this works. So let's say you're having trouble. Let's see here. Yeah, let's say you're having trouble on the E. Put the fermata on the note that you're having trouble with. And what that does, we're talking about familiarity, right? Anything that you play for longer than everything else is going to stick more into your head. So those are a few things that you can do to help. Okay, I hope that helps. Anthony says, must practice, have a recital in a few weeks using your trumpet practice methods. Slow, isolate difficult parts, repeat. So yes, that's good. So let me ask you guys, I just put that video out about the worst way to practice. And I say in there that that the best way to practice, I tell you that the best way to practice is to use a proven practice technique. And then at the end of the video, I say that if you look up what the practice techniques are online, nothing comes up. The first 3 pages of websites that come up don't have not a single practice technique in them. They talk about airy-fairy stuff like make sure you're comfortable and stuff like that. Make sure you stand up straight. Those are not practice techniques. Okay? So let me ask you guys, out of curiosity, what practice techniques do you guys know besides just trying to get it right, besides slowing it down, besides hitting isolated sections? What practice techniques do you guys know? Okay, just give me some feedback on that. I would like to know if you guys are even aware of the practice techniques. Cardo says, thanks a lot, Eddie. I got it. Very good. Raimo says, I am muscular trumpet player. That's great. So there's nothing that should prevent you from playing a tuba, if that's why you were asking. Okay? All right. So Gary says, did I say hello to Gary yet? Hello, Gary. All right. Gary says 24 hours. Oh, yeah, 24 hours would be, that would be, we'd all have to get some coffee or something. I don't do coffee anymore, but I would have to for that. Javier says, is there a benefit on trying to play on trumpet what other instruments do in a music piece? Yes, absolutely. You know, I heard, and a lot of this might be urban legend, right? I heard that Clifford Brown could play bass, he could play drums, and he could play piano. And yes, I understand that it's different than trying to play their part on your instrument, but it's the same kind of thing, right? You know, I remember an interview with Freddie Hubbard where they asked him, what trumpet players are you listening to, or who are you studying, and stuff, something along those lines. And he says, man, he doesn't do that. He listens to piano players and sax players. And then there was this guitar player that came to the university one time, and he says he only listens to trumpet players. So it's sort of a jazz thing, right? To not listen to the instrument you play. Now, I'm not so averse to studying trumpet players. I started, when I first started doing this stuff for myself, I only ever listened to saxes, and, well, that's not 100% true. I guess what I should say is I studied sax players. But you know what? Something over the years changed. First of all, because of my teaching. I want the students to listen to trumpet players because that's where you get that sound model, right? But also, you know, anyway, I kind of lost track of what I was saying. But yes, there is benefit. You know, there's also in the classical trumpet world, There's a lot of those guys that will go study, take lessons with a vocal teacher, like an opera singer or something. There's a lot of that. All right, so James says, I purchased a Hal Leonard real book mainly so I would have the chords to create a backing track. I have heard some jazz musicians on YouTube talking bad about the book. What are your thoughts? Hal Leonard real book. That's a book I'm not familiar with at all. I'm familiar with the illegal one. Now, is Hal Leonard the one that put out the legal book? The legal fake book? Let me look that up real quick. Yeah, I don't know. Real book volume. Oh, yes, it is Hal Leonard. Look at that. Okay, so I don't know why they would be thinking that. Is it possible you're getting that confused with the old real book, the illegal one? The illegal fake book has a whole bunch of problems. One of the specific problems that I remember, I always sounded bad on the fourth measure of Autumn Leaves, right? I would always go somewhere weird on that tune. All the time. And in fact, I think I remember now what it was. So let's say I'm, and it's not in this key, but I'm just, and I would play that in that measure. I would go to E flat. It's not E flat. It's an F. And what happened was, I believe what happened was that whoever was transposing the book accidentally didn't transpose that one chord. And then there's a bunch of stuff like that. I also saw Watermelon Man, where the first note is G, not F. So yes, the old fake book has a bunch of problems in it. A bunch of problems. Serious problems. Stuff that's absolutely wrong. The Hal Leonard version is not as bad. So if we're looking at what's bad and what's worse and what's better, now what most people say is that you should just learn the tune from recordings. And that's true, but we don't have time to learn all the tunes that way. That's not practical. The only way that's practical is if you're not gigging. Okay, so a lot of times those guys who are like, they're on tour and they're playing with a band that's playing the same tunes every night, like 8 tunes or whatever. That's not the same as us guys that have to go to the gig and play 100 tunes in a week. Right? That's not the same thing. So those people who say you should learn all the tunes by ear, that's not going to happen. There's not enough time for that. There's not enough time for that. So the Hal Leonard version of the fake book is better than the old one. So I don't know what people will be complaining about. Okay, so what am I doing here? I got lost a little bit. Gabriel says, thanks, Eddie. What if I remove the tuning slide and practice intervals on the lead pipe? That is one of the things you can do. I don't know if that's as effective as doing the mouthpiece, because practicing on the tuning slide is not so much about, yeah, I think that's a little different. it's not so much about, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's no benefit to it. But what would help that specific interval? I guess that's what I'm saying. Practicing the tuning slide is more of a general solution to practicing all intervals, I guess I would say. But keep in mind that a lot of times it's not that you're having problems with intervals in general. It's usually these specific notes that stick out, right? So I do think a more focused approach to the intervals is a better approach, in my opinion. Now, maybe you do have a more general problem, then yes, the lead pipe will be a good solution to that. Gabriel says, on a concert, my best is listening to a good trumpet player. So I'm not sure what that's. My Hummel improved a lot since you gave me the guitar version to listen to. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, so that's part of, I actually consider that part of a practice technique. Oh, I see that's what you're saying. As in response to my question, what practice techniques do you use? And you can kind of call that a practice technique. That's at least something that helps you get from not being able to play it to being able to play it. So yes, that's a good answer. Raimo says, I mean, I know only those practice methods you mentioned. Okay, good. Anthony says, when I play with my community orchestra, I mostly have to sight read difficult charts. We play 10 new pieces about every month or so. So I love this. We do 5. Okay, good. Cardo's saying changing rhythms. Yes, that's one of the practice methods, practice techniques. And Raimo says, my practice is playing old Finnish folk songs and dance music. I love that. That's wonderful. So Javier says, about your practice techniques question, I didn't know any, because most trumpet info and teachers think, 1, try harder or try more, and 2, it will eventually come, just have patience, right? So yes, I think most people are in that same boat, Javier. So here's another one, yes. So Sean McGinty says, if you can't sing it, you can't play it. So that's another one, is you sing the part, right? So that kind of goes along with what Gabriel says about listening, right? So this would be the other side of listening. If you can't sing the correct pitches, you can't play them either. That's right, changing rhythms as a practice technique. Now there's different applications of changing rhythms, right? So for me now that I've gathered all these different techniques, I consider changing rhythms a category of practice techniques. Okay? But yes, that's definitely one of them. Anthony says, then the second week we do 5 different pieces and then of the 10. That's nice. I always practice at home the 5 we are not doing. That's why I must sight read. That's funny. Gary says, I do lead pipe buzzing if I'm getting an issue on sound production. Right, so that's a general problem. I buzz through a passage or do a breath pattern by taking the instrument off my face and just tooling it. Okay, Nicholas Payton also plays piano, drums, and bass. That's right. I heard about that. That's Cardo says that. And then Gabrielle says, what about solfeggio as a practice technique? Absolutely. That falls in the same category as Sean McGinty saying if you can't sing it, you can't play it. If you want to take if you want to take what Sean says up the next level, um, doing that with solfeggio takes it all the more up to the next level, right? And I used to do that a lot, actually. My solfeggio is a little bit right now, a little bit shaky, rusty, I guess I should say. But yes, I used to do a whole bunch of solfeggio for practicing. So yes, there's a bunch of practice techniques out there. Okay, I shouldn't say a bunch of them. There are practice techniques out there, and it's amazing to me. I can't even imagine working on a piece of music without these techniques. James says, I wanted to let you know that I was able to move into Chops Pro for a couple of weeks ago. I am finally starting to break through the high C ceiling. My endurance has really improved. Well, congratulations on that. Yeah. Congratulations on it. We like to hear from people when they're having success. And you know what? That's not even just success with my methods. I'm so glad to hear you're using the Chops books. But we like to hear successful stories from everybody. Raimo asks, what is solfeggio? Solfeggio is the do re mi stuff. Do re mi fa sol la ti do, re ti do la ti sol la fa sol mi fa re mi do so do. Italian Mafia. Gabriel says it's an Italian Mafia. That's funny. So so if I do what can I do? Do re mi re fa ti do mi so so fa 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 mi re mi. Whoop! So I forgot it. Do re mi. So that's the second movement of the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, right? Do re mi re fa ti do mi so so fa 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 mi re mi so fa 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 mi re do ti re do la so do re mi re fa ti do mi so si la. Right, I do the chromatic one, so G sharp would be C, not so. Si la so fa mi re do re ti do so mi do. Right. Sean McGinty says Christian McBride is a wonderful trumpet player as well. Oh, I didn't know that. That's new. That's news to me. Woohoo! Yep. Haydn Trumpet Concerto, second movement. Javier says, do you know or anybody anything about Del Quadro trumpets? Those are some cool horns. Nope, I don't know anything about that. Sorry about that. All right, guys. Thank you, Anthony, for hanging out with us. You have a good week too. Thank you for. So Raimo says, thanks, got it, will not use it. Let me tell, you know what, maybe we'll have a video or something about the benefits of solfeggio. Because there are some benefits, it's not immediately obvious why, but there are benefits to doing solfeggio. So anyway, thanks guys. I'm sorry we got off to a shaky start. I'm going to spend time figuring out the technical stuff before our next Q and A. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me on that. I think, I have the option to edit it afterwards, and I think I will cut all that stuff out because there's no reason why that should be in. All right, thanks, Gabriel. Thank all of you guys. We'll see you next week. God bless you, and have a great